Well, hello and welcome back to the Redeem for Time podcast. I am really excited to welcome a very good friend of mine, Michelle McCoy, back to the Redeem for Time podcast. Michelle's been here before. She's someone that's been in my life that God just had a really fun way of bringing us together. And so I'm excited for you guys to get to learn from her because she is here to help talk about the types of fatigue that women fight and why your go-to fixes aren't working. If you're a business owner or a busyness owner, then you probably are fighting some level of fatigue, and it does affect your results in your business. So, Michelle, welcome back here. Let's start off with a fun question. It's almost summertime as this is coming out. So, what are you committed to making time for this summer, and why does that matter to you?
Lisa, thanks so much for having me. I love talking with you. We could talk for hours. And yeah, so I am committed really to more family. Like
Mhm.
that is really what's been on my heart for this year, for this summer. I will actually be taking time to care for a family member for a few weeks, and that won't be in my home. So that is going to involve travel and all that that entails. But then once home, like we always have a big garden and well, big for us. And there's all of that harvesting and the canning and all of that that really fills up the evenings like crazy, but it's all good. And just really focusing on honestly being B capital B capital E, being and less doing.
I love that, right?
Business wise, I'm focusing on my journal. So I'm super excited about that. So just all the little tweaks and changes making in and everything, as you know, putting into a journal to create this beautiful piece
Right.
for people.
Well, tell us about the work you do and how God has uniquely called you to serve women and why this is important for business owners. And then feel free to weave a little bit of how the journal is going to fit into that so we can kind of get a little sneak peek of that.
Well, honestly, Lisa, too many women, too many Christian women are walking around just as sick as the world. They're just as exhausted, maybe even more so. They're just as foggy brained. They're stressed out. They're approaching burnout. And so, my desire is to share hope and encouragement that this does not have to be your new normal,
Mm.
especially if you are in the midlife season, entering menopause, in perimenopause. Like, this does not have to be your new normal. And especially as you are building a business, right? Because entrepreneurs, too many of them are burning out. They're struggling with just the calling that God has placed on their hearts because they're exhausted, right? They're just so, burning the candle at both ends, even though we know as entrepreneurs that's not the right thing to do. But as a one woman show, that's really hard to separate, right? And so we're, you know, really putting ourselves in a season, putting ourselves first in a season for true rest and recovery and repair that needs to happen. And that is a struggle for business owners specifically because their health, their wellness is typically the last thing that they focus on. But as you know, as CEOs, right, Christ empowered operators, we do things differently. And God desires his daughters to be well, like really be well in body, soul, and spirit. And that includes all areas of our wellness so we can continue to do what he's called us to do. And we also have families, right? But it really is possible to feel good while we are building this business that God has called us to, while we are caring for our families, while we are um, serving in our churches and in our communities. But see, we need the answers and we need a personalized plan for what we need, right? Because we're all so uniquely different and we all need different things. I mean, yeah, across the board, we all need stuff and we can get into that later. But, I remember when God called me very specifically this directive to teach my people. And his daughters are who I am really called to teach and support because women are the heartbeat of the home.
Mm.
And when they feel good inside and out, then the things that they're doing amazing things for the kingdom and their families, the work God's called them to do. And it just trickles down
Mm.
into everybody that sees it, everybody in the family unit, but then those people that are around. I mean, for business owners and Christian women in general, exhaustion isn't just a busy season, right? Listen,
Mm.
we've talked about this. It's
Yes.
become their way of life. How are you doing? Oh, I'm so tired. I'm exhausted, but I'm busy. I'm pushing through. I'm stressed, but I'm pushing through, right? And this is honestly, it's not how God designed us to live.
Oh, I love this. And I love, we talk about the 8 areas of attention that we need to
Yeah.
invest time in. And one of them is wellness. And the way that I draw that
Yeah.
wheel, right? We have faith at the center, and then we have these other areas around it. What I often talk about is that it's like the spokes on a bicycle tire. If one of those spokes is not, attached all the way to the edge of the wheel, that wheel will roll, but it will be a little clunky, right, as
Yeah.
it rolls. And it's going to start putting stress and strain on those other areas, right? Because they're bearing the weight. And so this is why we need to invest time in our wellness. And I mean, it's so interesting that you even said this. Like, oftentimes, this is the area that we make time for last,
Yeah.
because it feels like, the extra thing. I'm not sure. It doesn't maybe feel as tangible. So tell us a little bit more about, like, why is this a passion of yours? I know you've got a story related to kind of what went on in your own life, and what happens when we don't get to the root of our health issues, especially in midlife, when we're not investing time in this area and it's starting to put stress on some of those other ones.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, God called me to this passion in holistic wellness over 21 years ago. I just didn't know it. We just were going through our own health challenges with our daughter where conventional medicine failed her. And then I went through my own first fatigue crisis and autoimmune issues. And then I went through a second one. And the second one really laid me flat, literally. Like the body will lay you down, God will lay us down. And so, honestly, the cost is so much. The cost in not taking care of yourself is so much. The cost in dollars, the cost in pain medications, medications for a health diagnosis that, then what, right? But also in time, because the time, the amount of energy you spend when you don't feel well, like you're putting so much extra effort into thinking about what you're trying to do or what was I going to do next or all of these things, like it's draining, it's truly draining. And when we don't feel well, I mean, we're just exuding, we're using up even more energy stores that we frankly don't have, especially if we're struggling with fatigue situations. And it's really stealing from us. And what
Mhm.
does the enemy want? He wants to steal, kill, and destroy. And honestly, we are 2/3 of the way sick before a diagnosis is even made. So then what? We don't want to get to that diagnosis. But when we get there, it's even harder to get the good health that God desires for us in 3 John 2. 3 John 2 is kind of the catalyst verse for treasured wellness. Um, it says I'm just going to read it so I don't butcher it. It says, Beloved, I pray that in every way you may prosper and enjoy good health as your soul also prospers. And our soul is our mind, will, and emotions. And so it's hard if we get that diagnosis, but it's never impossible. With God, it is never impossible. But this is why it's so important to get to the root. We have to get to the root cause of what is going on, our exhaustion, our health, our brain fog, our pain, our sleepless nights, whatever it is, you fill in the blank for you. Because not only then will we feel better, but we can do the work that God has called us to do and to live out
Mhm.
our purpose, live out what we have discovered about our own body, fueling it properly, caring for it properly, honoring it as the temple that it is, because everybody's watching, right? And again, as the heartbeat of our home, as women being the heartbeat of the home, everything that we are doing is kind of on display in a way, right? It's a huge responsibility, but it's a beautiful gift that God has given us. And this season, this midlife season, whether you're approaching menopause, in perimenopause, whatever, it really can be a beautiful time. The world tells you it's not, but it can be a beautiful time. But when you don't feel well, so much is stolen from you as
Mhm.
God's daughter.
Yeah. And, my
And
audience, they want to be wise stewards of the time, the talents, the treasures they've been entrusted. And yet, so often, right, it's that physical element of it, whether it's the
yeah,
exhaustion or some kind of a health diagnosis or just not feeling well, that can really distract from that. And one of the things that I teach is that when we don't give these areas attention now, one day they will demand our attention. And like you
They
talked about,
will.
they're always going to cost us more in all those areas of time,
Yeah,
energy, stress, like heading back and forth to doctors, popping pills or, having procedures done,
right.
things like that will always cost us more. And if we
Always.
can prevent that, right, it's going to be so much better. So you talk about how to break the cycle of fatigue and how to find real rest. So kind of talk us through the three types of fatigue that most women are experiencing and a little bit about why conventional resources don't work.
Mm, great question. Well, the three types of fatigue that women, I have found that there are three specific types of fatigue that women are fighting. And that's the first one is physical. It's the tangible. It's the one that you are physically feeling. This might be the absolute biggest issue for you right now because it's consistently getting your attention. And there are many reasons why you could be tired. Late nights, early mornings, like whatever, caretaking for somebody. Um, the foods you're eating or not eating. There could just be a lot. But the problem is when that fatigue, that exhaustion becomes long lasting. Like it becomes almost your new normal. And you can't catch up from sleeping in on Saturday. You can't, it doesn't go away when you go on vacation. It's like it's always there. And then the second type is mental fatigue. I love Jeremiah 6:16 because it says, this is what the Lord says, stand at the crossroads and ask and look and ask for the ancient paths. Ask where is the good way and then walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. But you said we will not walk in it. And that just always it strikes me every time I read that because we want this rest. We want this soul rest. We want rest from our thoughts constantly, yapping at us, the voices in our head, right? We want the mental exhaustion to go away and rest for our brain, rest for our mind. And, tired souls, if we don't have that rest for our souls, that leads to tired bodies. So all three of these fatigue, these types of fatigue, all are interchanged. They're all interacting with each other. And how often do we say we will not walk in it? And so this is why it's important that we invest with our time, our finances, our knowledge, whatever, into our wellness because otherwise, we are just getting worse. We get worse and worse. And stress is huge, huge into that. And I'm not going to go into that now, but the third type is spiritual fatigue. And I really believe that this is the most dangerous type of fatigue that we can experience because it takes us away from the Lord.
Mm.
This is where we start becoming, we're drained, exhausted, maybe apathetic about our spiritual walk. So our soul is being fatigued, our soul is being drained, and we're not refreshing. We're not pouring into ourselves spiritually. We're maybe avoiding time spent with God, or we're focused on this works mindset, which a lot of women in the season, especially building businesses, we get focused on the works-based mindset because we are trying so hard to build something that God's called us to for his kingdom, for his glory, and for our good. And we get caught up into that. It's almost like we get caught up into the world's way of doing. And it really pulls us away from our source. So that's why I say I believe that the spiritual fatigue is the most dangerous. And conventionally, like the worldly ways of addressing our fatigue, they're really not sticking. They're not really bringing us true rest. Matthew 6:33, I talk about this verse a lot, seek him first. And then if you go into Matthew 11, where he's saying, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest. So it all comes back to the biblical foundation of seeking the Lord first for our true rest. And when we do that, it's also addressing the physical fatigue. It's addressing the mental, emotional fatigue. It's addressing obviously the spiritual. And the body's so brilliantly designed, it's all connected. So we have to address all three.
That's so important, right? And I think it is. The squeaky wheel gets our time and attention, the physical one.
Right.
And maybe
Yeah.
even then, not as much as it should, because typically, especially as business owners who are also juggling a lot of things in life and possible ministry and, other areas as well, we just tend to push through and say,
Yeah.
I'm just going to push through. It's just, like you said, it's a busy season. But when that season turns
Yeah.
into, no, this is just how things are day in, day out, that's where it can get dangerous and start
Yeah.
really reaching those, other wings. So what would you say to that woman who's listening today who's like, Michelle, Lissa, I'm exhausted. Like I probably have one or all the above of these, types of fatigue. What would you say to her to start breaking that cycle and start taking steps towards finding that real rest?
I mean, the first thing, I mean, there are some tangibles for sure, but the first thing is I would get quiet with the Lord. I would literally Matthew 6:33 seek him first.
Mhm.
Lord, what do I need? What are you trying to show me? Um, Reveal to me what I am doing or not doing that is causing more fatigue, right? Like reveal to me, like make it very personal because he's a very personal God. And then tangibly, of course, there are, the nutrition, there's the nutrition piece, right? Making sure you're getting enough water. Um, it's amazing how when we are hydrated properly, how much clearer our thinking is, how much more energy we feel. Even like the water before coffee, which is like I say that all the time, drink water before coffee. It makes such a difference because you are cellularly dehydrated when you wake up in the morning. It just is. You've been sleeping. So reaching for that hydration, it's just an easy fix. Even leaving your glass out by the coffee maker, like if you're cheating with the Keurigs, so your coffee's made instantly. Just little tips like that to help you remember. And then, most women in the midlife season, specifically women over 35, are just not eating enough protein. So these are some things that, yes, sleep is important. Yes, movement is important, but fueling our body as well is very important. And we need to start spiritually and then start with these simple little basics like eating enough protein, drinking enough water, and then as you start to feel better, you'll be able to build on that. It doesn't have to be all across the board all at once. Work on these baby steps to kind of build your way up. Okay, I got a text the other day like, hey, it's only been a week and I'm already feeling so much better because this is what I started doing. And it's like, great, that fit into her schedule. And she's already having less brain fog in the afternoon, 2 p.m., that slump where she's wanting to reach for that coffee, that sugary coffee, right? For the double whammy of caffeine and sugar. She's like, I'm feeling so much better. It works for each person, but we have to fit it into your life, especially as a business owner. We have to fit it in so that you can continue to build on it.
Yeah, how many of us have great intentions in an area like wellness, and then we just
Uh,
don't make time for it? And, we
right.
make time for things that matter. So
Yeah,
I
we
love how you
do.
talk about treasuring your wellness and how this is a
Yeah.
gift that we need to steward as well as our time, as well as our talents and resources that
Yeah.
get applied to business and other areas. And I have you going through my head every morning. I'm like, Lissa, water before coffee. I make sure that I drink enough before I make that pour over cup of coffee. And
Right.
and so it's just that one simple thing has made such a big
Yeah.
difference, for me. So I love this. So let's kind of tie this together because I always like pulling it back to, if we want to make time for something, we want to make sure it has a good return on time invested, a good roadie, right? Like we talk
Yeah.
about. So how does approaching wellness in this way and our fatigue issues and things like that, how does this have an effect on our time and our return on time invested, especially as business owners?
Well, I'm really glad you asked me this, Lisa, because we either pay now or pay later, right? We can either be proactive now in time, money, or wellness, or reactive later, right? So, I was thinking, how do you want to spend time with your new grandbaby, right? You want to get on the floor, you want to be able to get off the floor, like you want to be able to really have the energy to play and stay engaged with him and with your family. And so we all want these things. We're all in this new phase of life, right? Some of us for the first time, empty nesters, some of us have been for a while, and we're not where we wanted to be in our wellness when we pictured it, right? So, but it's never too late. It's never too late. They say health is wealth, right? Have you heard
Mm,
that?
mm,
It's a common phrase, but if we truly don't believe that as daughters, right, as daughters of the king, we're just kind of limping around as sick as the world, right? And the roadie, the return on your time invested in your own wellness, it's just endless when you care for yourself well, because again, it's all connected, your brain, when our daughter was sick, they were just looking at her brain. They weren't looking at her gut, but her gut was a mess. And we had to look at everything. It's all connected beautifully. So we can't compartmentalize our wellness. We need to approach it all, not in an overwhelming way, but we just need to recognize that, hey, like, am I caring for myself well? Am I treasuring the temple of the Holy Spirit? Am I honoring that? Like, it really brings us wealth of wellness, when we do take that time, because when we pour into ourselves for a season and then continue to pour in regularly, I have these like midday resets and things that we talk about. We're not going to go backwards, because once we feel better, we don't want to go back to when we didn't feel good. Like, so many people say, gosh, I didn't know how bad I felt until I didn't feel so bad anymore.
Yeah.
I
We've
mean,
been
and
kind of lulled into this is just how it
yeah,
is, or accepting that as we age instead of really experiencing what's possible.
right. And rest, we could have a whole another conversation on just rest itself, but it doesn't have to be that elusive. I want to, but I don't have time, right? I mean, really, we have to ask ourselves. Every woman listening has to ask herself, what does good health mean for you? What
Mm.
does it mean for your family, your husband, your kids, your grandkids, your service? Like, what does that mean for you? What does it look like? Is that energy to truly connect with those you love after a long day, not having to cancel those family events because you're just so drained after a work day. You gave it the office. You don't have anything left in you. Like, what does it mean for you? And stop pushing that off, because you are worth it. Good health is your birthright. And if we don't invest in the time and resources to care enough about our health, it won't be good. We'll just be kind of limping around, limping along, and over time it will get worse. And I don't say that to scare people. I just say that because it's a reality. We all know this, and we do care about what we take time for, like you said, and so just remember, good health is your birthright as a daughter of the King.
Yeah, I love that. And just going back to what you shared kind of near the beginning, that when we are in good health, we're able to more fully live out our calling, these things
Yeah.
that He has put in our lives and our businesses and our ministries and our communities and our families, right? But without it, we're, like you said, limping along, not really of much use to anyone, no benefit to the kingdom, right? When
Yeah.
we're just trying to make it through the day. So I love this, Michelle. Thank you so much. You are a wealth of knowledge. And I always love that about you because you take the time to do the research, to dig in, to make it personal, to figure out, and not just look at a number or just, like so many women, I think, and you talk about this all the time, like they're dismissed, right? Like they get these tests and the
Yes.
doctor says you're fine. And they
Yes.
know that they don't feel fine. So, what would be a good next step for a woman who's listening today to start addressing her wellness, whether it's specifically in her area of fatigue or whether just overall, wanting to feel well in midlife?
Oh, well, absolutely follow the Treasured Wellness podcast for sure. You'll have all the ways to connect with me there. But I do invite your listeners to download my blueprint. It's called Foggy and Fatigue Freedom Over 40. It's a blueprint that I created after I went through my second fatigue crisis, because it's daily intentional actions that you can take that are super doable, super simplistic, but it helps move the needle forward to helping you regain energy in a natural way. And so that's there. There are recipes in there as well that are really helpful and delicious to help boost your energy. So yeah, you can go to treasuredwellness.com/blueprint to get that free resource for you. And then I'll just see you hanging out at the podcast, Treasured
Yeah.
Wellness.
I know my listeners love podcasts, right? It's a great way to invest time while we're also sometimes doing something else. So I'm going to encourage you guys,
Oh yeah.
make sure you follow the Treasured Wellness podcast. Definitely go and grab her blueprint. We'll make sure to link to that in the show notes as well. And start treasuring your wellness by giving it time. Like we've said, kind of sprinkled throughout this conversation, we make time for the things that matter. And when we don't make time for the things that matter, they will, like Michelle experienced, put us flat on our back sometimes. And I'm just coming out of a season, and you know this, Michelle, where I was exhausted
Yeah.
mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all the things. And I had to push pause and I had to evaluate where do I need to be investing time right now and what things can go so that, right,
Yeah.
it doesn't continue to cost me more and more and take me in a whole different direction. So I love the work you do and I love the intention you have around it.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. I'm having to reset my priorities myself, and it's just a lifelong continuation of the just really being the daughter that God's called us to be. But to do that, we have to honor ourselves as well.
Yeah, such a great reminder. Thank you so much for pouring into us today, Michelle. We are going to continue the conversation over inside the Redeem Her Time community. So if you're already a member, pop on over there. We always put engaging questions and give you opportunities to ask questions of our speakers that are here on the podcast. So make sure you come over. If you're not a member yet, come find us at redeemhertime.com/community. We are a group of like-minded women who want to be faithful and fruitful with the time that God has given us by investing it wisely. And one of those areas that we need to be investing time in because we will be paying for it if we don't is in our wellness. And so this is going to be a place you want to be not only making those things priority, but also then being accountable to continuing to give them time. So come and join us over there. Make sure you go follow Michelle's podcast. We'll link to all the things in the show notes and we will see you there.
Thanks so much.